Hello, chess friends. This is International Master Valeri Lilov, and welcome to today's lecture on YouTube. Um, what I'd like to cover right now is a pretty interesting subject that a lot of people are quite interested in hearing, and this is how do you handle bad openings? More importantly, how do you punish bad openings? Handling bad openings is a little difficult because, first of all, how do you know it's a bad opening? And more importantly, how do you find the right set of moves to make sure you could actually do it? So, I'm going to give you a few tools that you could immediately utilize in your very next game. So, let's start with the Grandmaster's approach. How does a Grandmaster actually handle this? I'm going to open up with a very specific set of Grandmaster examples. And beginning, there is this game that was actually played between Orlan Ryu and Fabian Lipsvitzi. These were Grandmasters, and I'd like you to take a look at this from black side. So we flip the board. Now, in this game, white played g4. Now, I start with that, not because this is the ultimate bad opening that you will see in a real game, but rather because the approach that black took was very effective. So, first question is, what do we do when we handle something we never seen? Or that we've seen, we just don't know what to do. Rule number one, control the center. The center is the main guideline that we have to follow if we ever want to achieve a better control or stronger possibilities. Essentially, taking the chance of playing d5 created a threat that white actually allowed just so that he can, make sure and do the c4 move. e6, queen b3. Now, white seems to have tricked us. What should black do? Take a moment to think about it. He's attacking against two pawns, and none of those really looks pleasant. So what do we do? What do you do in a position of that kind? Now don't forget the next thing. When you already feel like you got yourself in a trap position, it's not that bad, especially if your opponent has played an incorrect opening like he did here. What you need to do is to rely on development only. So first, any strategy you go with must gravitate towards the center. That's a key. The second rule is that we have to focus on development and nothing but development. Develop, develop, develop. Let him take a pawn, let him take two pawns. Nobody cares. As long as you remember that it is all about, the control and the pieces that you must take. So what we're actually going for in this position is the chance to play with maybe in this moment we can play towards the c5 and knight at the d7. So we're going to have quite a bit to show. It's pretty valuable. So now what happens is that white plays knight c3, knight d7. Nothing else matters as much for black. All he needs is just to make sure that his pieces go up. C takes d, e takes d, knight takes d, knight takes d, bishop takes d, and bishop h5. Now, it's interesting because you could almost go and say that this is a position in which black has already suffered. He's lost a pawn in the middle, he's lost b7, and yet he hasn't deviated from the idea of the fast development. Everything is about fast development. Everything that goes, everything that happens, everything is about that. So, after the move of bishop h5, white captures b7, and it really doesn't matter because after the move of bishop to the takes to the b7, what's happening in this moment is that black just plays rook to b8. Queen e3, bishop e7. Now there's bishop f3, and then black simply plays with bishop to g6. The idea is that no matter where white goes next, we're going to have the chance to play short castles. And now you see the big disadvantage of the bad development. It's white got what he wanted, but because he didn't follow the right order, he didn't build a structure to help him eventually. What's actually happened is that he has missed most important that he really cared about from the very early stage, and nothing can help that. Bishop b2, rook e8. You could see this now. The advantage of development goes beyond anything else. And as white continues collecting pawns, black now opens up his pieces and he creates an impossible attack. Knight e5 now sets off the threat of knight to d3 that's coming up next move, and this is just the beginning. It's a sequence that will actually allow black to control a lot of opportunities and will almost kill off white's own development and position. So bishop takes e5, rook takes e5, e3, and then bishop to the b4. Look at that. None of the white pieces that he was actually having around is in condition to help him. White's got to do knight e2, and then we're actually realizing the problem. The problem is that black can just do queen takes to the d2. He can keep up, and then after white plays king f1, there's bishop d3. Look at that. Can you imagine how quickly this position changed? I mean, I can. I'm actually thinking, and I still don't know where did he really make a mistake. Where did black make the mistake? Where did white make the mistake? Well, the mistake was essential. See, that's the problem. And offbeat lines often have that major problem for which grandmasters and strong players don't play them, don't then choose them. What is that issue? The issue is that they fundamentally lead to a structure that's not good enough. And because they fundamentally lead to that, as long as you could relate on a faster development, you will be able to prove the advantage you've got. Now, of course, it's just a matter of a couple of moves that black could, set up his own pieces. He's got the attack on the f5, and he can simply continue with it. So let's see. White plays queen c6, rook c5, queen a4, rook c2. And interestingly enough, in this position, surely white has to do rook g3, but then the knight falls. And then black plays bishop b5, completely killing off, many of the resources here. So it's an interesting point. Of course, the check leads to this, another check, another check, another check, and white's lost. But if you look at this, the real key is focus on the center so that you can control enough space there. And then the second thing is make sure that you rely on nothing else. No other detail than a faster development is going to help you, especially when your opponent's opening is bad. Now, what I want to show you is something interesting. Do you want to see how a strong master punished the world champion? Let's take a look at that. This was actually a game that was played between Magnus Carlsen himself. Yes, that's right, you heard it. The world champion. Let's see how he lost online game, which I think is a rapid online game, by choosing the wrong opening. Play knight f3, f3, knight h3, and knight f2. Now, I don't believe anybody is going to play that, but the rules that you could follow are the same. Center, speed development that comes from behind. And of course, if there is a chance, now you see here's another rule, if there's a possibility, take the chance to ruin his position, to create a weakness of his side of some kind or something similar. Now we've got that idea in place, and it actually feels really good. Saying it will be perfect, I don't know if it will be, but it stands out as good. So, what's coming up next? After the bishop takes f2, king takes f2, black continues with this development. Whatever detail we wanted to make, it was just for one move. Now, that move's gone, fine. We jump in and we do this. So after that candidate, apparently white had to do this. Bishop to the e6 here, and then, of course, black plays with queen to the e7. Rook e1, long side castling. What's so wonderful about that position is that, as you could see it pretty nicely right here, black is not relying on anything except the three rule that Carlsen himself has introduced is very successful in his games. Develop, improve, and attack, depending on the different stages that we're at. Essentially, what Black wants to do now is simply to open up the position, knowing that with all that development swayed upon White's position, it wouldn't even take so long for his own pieces to really bring, the pressure and the attack that they require. It was a great idea, and it just continues to help. Let's see. I mean, how does that work next? After that move, Black plays knight g4. Remember that developing and controlling the center is just the beginning. That does not guarantee you the advantage. What guarantees an advantage is the ability to make the pieces capable enough. Now, that happens once you acquire important or most active positions for each and every one of those forces. Now you see you witness how that goes as Black jumps forward and does a move of knight of the g4. So we have that idea. We're getting the chance to play with a move of g5, and we're having the possibility to follow up a threat. So what is going on next? After that, White played bishop e3, hoping to protect, but then Black took it, exchanging the bishop pair, and now I give you a chance. Think about it. What is Black supposed to do to really manage his pieces a bit better? Well, there are a couple of things, that's for sure. And, they all look fine and look fair. So, what is the right choice? What does Black do? Actually, from here. The point behind this position and what Black did next is very critical. Everything that needs to happen has to be about a plan. You see, it actually goes very similar to what you would usually want to do if you didn't have the advantage. It's just that you do have the advantage, and that only helps. Instead of trying to figure out some super unique and secret way that is going to make us the game of our life, we actually need to think about simplicity. How do we make things a little bit simpler and a little bit easier so that there is more than enough? And that's what this is all about. Very easy, very simple, and sophisticated way to open. Now, what's coming up next it's a good question, actually. Well, right after that move, apparently, in here, White decided to play h3. And this is where Black played h4, g4, queen c5, queen d2, and knight e7. So we realize here that there is definitely going to be a possibility for Black to maneuver the pieces, and he's not feeling ready to open up or exchange or do anything unless much later, until the position is ready. When the position gets ready, we'll do whatever is necessary. We'll do it. Not before then, though. Not before then. Give your position a little bit of time so it can breathe, and then you can decide better on what or where you're going. This was necessary. So what's coming up next in this moment? Actually, it's a good question. After that, ultimately, White played queen to f2 in this moment so that he could feel a little bit like crafty and solid. But what is Black? What was Black's actual intention and idea to deliver? Well, in here, it was just king b8. Yes, this is a solid move. We're ultimately picking up on a candidate that's, helpful, and there isn't too much to worry. Everything just feels totally in place. What's coming out? What's going on next? Actually, the idea is that White played rook to the f3 in this moment, and so after rook f3, Black plays queen to b4. So, what Black needs is to avoid exchanges. What he needs is to make sure that there is no trouble or tactics or anything scary. Nothing like that. Just an easy idea. And what's so exciting about this position is that, over here, as it was, white played knight to the d1, and then black played with knight f4, resourcefully moving that knight in time. And of course, we keep the weight. You see, that's a very good point in this type of position. You don't want to worry about anything else. You just keep the weight. You have everything under control, and after bishop take, after that, bishop f1, have queen to the d7 in this moment, and it's a good thing. White plays knight e3, and then there was the g6 move because black could play with the move f5 right here. A great setup. The version of the advanced pieces is quite cool. After knight g2, there's a sweet exchange, and of course the opportunity to open up with f5. E takes f, g takes f, rook e1, f takes to the g4. Something I really love about this position is how quickly it is for black to open up and advance. Because like after the h takes to the g and then bishop takes to the g, we understand that it's not just the fact that white's rook is gonna have to move away, but we also have the move of h3 and h2. We got a move like rook 8 f8 out there, and it's just an incredible amount of forces that are going to be perfect, are going to go really well here. So what's going on next? After that move, surely the idea is that we just continue. I mean, white played rook takes f7, queen to the d6, and then after this, queen e7. See, whatever white's doing, it's not even dangerous. It doesn't even seem to pose a problem. That's the whole thing. Whatever white is doing, he is missing a clear target. The structure is designed in such a way that it practically dismisses any possible opportunity for white to deliver an actual threat or anything scary or anything damaging. And that's really great. That's wonderful. So what do we do next? Of course, after that, apparently white played rook to the f7. So where do you think black's queen has to go? We got a couple of different places we can put it on, and they're all more or less fine. But the question is, which one's going to be the best? So you can take a second and think about it. What's black's best move in this position? I think that any of those moves that we have are pretty good. But the one that I feel has most impact in the position is absolutely the candidate of queen e8. Perfect move by black. Why not e6? Why not other squares? It was a luring move. It lured white's queen to go that far inside the black territory. And then, as white plays the rook takes to the e5, black does queen e4, attacking. And this was great. After the move of rook c5, black plays bishop h3, and we realize how, even though white's pieces are greatly advanced, there's no impact. That opening is really to blame for this. I mean, apparently you could say almost it doesn't matter. I mean, the opening wasn't all that awful, but it was. It did a lot of the possible damage that came to white's position. So the rook g7, bishop takes g2, king takes g2, rook takes g7, and queen f4. Now black is stabilizing c7, and he continues to work out the attack that would put white in a very difficult, almost miserable position as it goes. Let's take a look and see how it happened. Rook c4, capture, and interestingly enough, in this moment, we could see quite easily after king h1, black played queen f3 check, queen f2, another check, and there was queen f2 checking. And like obviously, in this moment, black messed up a little bit in that type of position. But in the end of the day, there was rook to the g8. It sets up the idea of rook g2, queen h4, capture, and c2 happens. White is always having to worry. See, this it doesn't matter what type of mistakes this black make. It's still that type of horrible position going on, and no chance whatsoever for white to change things. Very interesting example, and a good way to, good way to talk about this. So, let's see. I want to show you. Actually, I want to tell you that those are the two key things to remember. Every time when you meet a rather uncomfortable opening, actually, so what you have to do is first and foremost, actually, you have to follow the idea of a quick center and a fast development. If you're able to do this, you'll be able to quickly move ahead, open your pieces, and regroup. As Black did it with the move queen to the c5, and so for instance, after knight e7 to knight g6, that knight could come out to the f4, and Black really made it great. It's simple, it's effective, it worked. So I'm glad that we got to talk about this, and I hope that you take some of this advice and you implement it directly in your next games. I want to thank you all for joining me, and sorry for the change time for today's lecture. I was delayed, so I had to start late. Thanks so much.